Some of you are going to be disappointed. Some of you are really excited. This is the end of Josh Tech, and we return to the PC Perspective podcast. This is episode 276. It is November 6th, 2013. I'm Ryan Schrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom's younger brother.
I am the former editor of JoshTech.com.
And I'm Alan Valentine.
Did you get that URL yet?
No, actually, I never did. So somebody out there probably is putting some wonderful porn on JoshTech with 2Ks.com.
Josh Tech.
But not three.
So I'm back. I'm not traveling anywhere this week. I actually will be traveling next Wednesday. But I think I will be at the hotel long enough to record it before I go to the airport that time. So next week I should be on the podcast, but remote at a hotel again. I hope it's not the last time this year. I've got 2 more trips between now and my birthday. So figure it out. A couple of reminders. If you want to know when we go live, before we go live and when all the stuff is breaking and it's funny to listen to us cuss at computers, you can sign up for a mailing list, or as Josh calls it, our spam list at pcper.com/subscribe. You look at here. This will show you our live mail before, sometimes 30 minutes before, sometimes 4 minutes before we go live. And boom, there you go. Easy for you to know when we're on here doing stupid things. I apparently missed something. Here we go. How about pressure? Although everybody should do it immediately. We have an Amazon affiliate code, and we started using 0%. I don't know how close you can get to 0% before you just call it 0%, but it's pretty close to 0%.
Just ask YouTube.
Within a Xeno or two.
Yeah, so we're going to try to use Amazon more for things that have stabilized in pricing, although obviously it's not stabilized 100%. But there's a post on the site titled Support PC Perspective with Amazon Affiliate Codes, and a Firefox plugin that anytime it kind of automatically adds the affiliate ID. So if you want to do that and support us, that's awesome. If not, I understand. But there's a lot of people in the comments here who have done so. So we appreciate that. But yeah, nothing else really to get into there. If you want to, awesome. If not, I understand. Let's talk about reviews, computer hardware, crap like that. Maury posted a review of the GIGABYTE Z87X UD5H motherboard. It is
all new.
Look on these.
Copyright.
I think we just got sued. Yeah.
Damn it.
Alex is
Alex
come back
Chang.
and get us. Yep. So the fairly high-end board here. It's got the gold gray flashy, which I kind of have grown to appreciate. You can see back here we're looking at USB 3.0 ports. Look at all these features. So many features.
Look at those tables. He does such a nice job.
He does really good tables. Like, that's a lot of tables, guys. It's a website, I can assure you. So here we go. Look at the motherboard. Nothing on the back. Blah blah blah. What do you guys think about these?
That large rim glass. It's shitty beer, but at least you don't have a gold rim glass.
Nobody's been in it before.
Oh dear Lord!
But you gotta like that it's got HDMI DisplayPort and DVI. Impressive.
You only use 2 of them at a time.
Yeah.
I think is the right answer to that.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, sure. It also has ports. This multiple actually uses that, to be honest with you. If you're a super extreme overclocker, I don't know. Maybe
It's a weird use of a SATA power connector, but
well, I mean, it's kind of nice because a lot of people don't have Molex power connectors anymore on their power supplies. So, well, if you've got a modular one, you don't want to have to hook up a modular or a Molex connector just so you can plug it into your stupid motherboard. But if you got extra cable, extra SATA thing in there, you might as well plug it in there. Who knows what the hell it does? But sure, why not? I like to look at Maury's pictures of CPU installations. Here, an enormous cooler.
I've been saving for something.
Tiny motherboards?
Yes.
You think? Yeah.
He has way too many ITX motherboards.
He's a few mothers for sure. He did this since the Z down there, processor step there.
And that was hard work because he does mention as a negative that it liked to crash when he took screenshots.
Oh, yeah. Well, take a picture with the camera, I guess. Lots of bio screenshots in here. Lots and lots and lots and lots. Battery placement. Let's check the pros and cons because we will surely know about the battery placement. He was able to get it up into 0.64.
Is that with an Ivy or a Haswell?
That's Haswell.
Good.
Yeah, plus it has to be, and it tells you because it's an LGA 1150 motherboard. Duh. So this board is on Newegg. It's actually all things considered, and CMOS
Splitting hairs to a new level.
Hey, you know what? At least he's consistent. He always checks all of these things to like a degree that I would never remember to do. I mean, that's, it takes screen capture in window mode. So there you go. So keep that in mind as well if you're looking at different boards. But check out the full review. Again, it's the Z87X UD5H motherboard from GIGABYTE. Now,
and don't put an Ivy bridge in it.
Don't because it will probably break. It will probably break. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the world of hardware, but there's been a lot of video card news. Off and on.
I've been in a cave.
I'm writing an article tonight that will be up tomorrow for the 780 Ti. It's not a secret, I guess, that it's coming out tomorrow. But I kind of, in the opening section, I kind of did a summation of here's what's happened since October 2nd in the world of graphics cards. And I kept linking to articles that we had written about, the 280X, the 270X, 280X Roundup. We've got G-Sync. We've got Shadow Play. We got the 290X. We got the 290, what we're going to talk about today. And it's a whole lot of stuff going on, and it's all pretty exciting. It's all kind of interesting. Take the AMD Radeon R9 290 4GB trip to Hawaii for $399. You like that SEO? Looking for trips to Hawaii, but instead they get suckered into reading a video card review.
Wrote is you're backing off on.
We'll talk about that later. I kind of am backing off on that one. So
you could also do like tags like get some diamond head. That'll get a lot of hits.
Yeah.
That sounds dangerous and painful. Sounds hard. Yeah, difficult. Yeah. So let's talk about the R9 290. This fewer shaders, fewer textures. It is Hawaii. Here's our. We'll talk. No,
it's not that cool.
Yeah.
The cool thing.
So it's $399. So let me put that in. Visualize this with me, if you will. It's $399. How much is the GTX 780?
$100 more.
Okay, $100. How much is the 290X?
$550.
All right. So, and then how much is the GTX 770? This is the hard one.
$329.
Man, good job, guys. So this card kind of sits in
Guys. No, Josh.com keeps up on BB price.
So it sits in this weird spot between the 770 and the 780, and then it's $150 less than the 290X. But if you look at that specification table, there's not a whole lot of difference. Here it is. There you go. Switch back. Here we go. A whole lot interesting.
You know what? That's
no
foreshadowing.
Good job. Good job.
Look at the small differences between my cards, if you know what I mean.
So the short secret will be the default maximum fan speed of the R9 290X is 40%. And that changes a bunch of stuff in terms of how quickly the GPU heats up, how high of a clock rate it can run at while the GPU is at its maximum thermal level, which is 95C on these cards. And when we first got the R9 290, I did all the benchmarking. Did all the testing.
The benchmarking?
All the benchmarking as it was presented to me, which was with the same 40% maximum fan speed. And then let's say, I don't know, less than 48 hours before the article is supposed to go live, AMD says, nah, we're just kidding. We're going to send you a new driver on Monday, and it's going to totally change things. And so the only change
you had to redo all the benchmarks.
I had to redo all the benchmarks. And what they did was they changed the default maximum fan speed from 40 to 47%. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, because that's...
your decibels like double.
The decibel rating goes up, but your performance goes up as well, because now the card is able to sustain a clock speed at a higher clock, rather, for a longer period of time than it ever could before, or for the extended period of time it's actually hitting higher clock rates than it was able to before.
Wait a minute. Did you say, default maximum? Wait, so implying the user can change it?
There's a slider. The default used to be 40, and now it's 47 for this particular
But you can
card.
do Uber mode to 55.
No, not with this card.
Oh, you can't.
The 290X had quiet mode, which was at 40%, and Uber mode, which is stupid name, which was at 55%. And
that's the X factor.
Well, to be frank, I did not test Uber mode on the 290X because that is not the default configuration. When you get the card, you install it, it's at 40%. And to be, again, pretty upfront, it was already a fairly loud card, so bumping it up to 55%, significantly louder. So I thought, not that big a deal. Well, as it turns out, with the R9 290, if you bump that from 40 to 47, there was already very little kind of specification difference between the 290 and the 290X. And now all of a sudden you're giving the 290 7% extra fan speed to compete against it. And so actually, like at 4K, in my testing, the 290 was actually faster than 290X, which is kind of dumb because the 290 is $150 less expensive. So why would you ever buy the 290X instead of the R9 290 is kind of beyond me. But I don't know, I think I just spoiled the whole story, actually.
Did you just spoil the whole story?
Just spoiled the whole story. Let me show you a big result. Battlefield 3. Hold on. And let me click frame. Wait. Now, if we go resolution setting, here it is again, 2560 by 1440. Or it's a hot NAT card. So what's that mean? Now let's look at the 4K result. In most 4K testing than the 290X at default settings. I know there are going to be people that are going to bitch at me because you didn't test Uber mode or you should have moved both fan speeds at 47%. That is not how they are presented to us in a default state, which is kind of what reference cards are supposed to do. When we start to get these retail boards from Asus and MSI and Sapphire and everybody that puts custom coolers on it and they do their own tweaks, that's what they're supposed to do as well. So,
well, that didn't even work, Ryan, because I've been hearing whinings on the internet that records are faster than retail.
Yeah. Here's another Metro.
No matter
result.
what you do, people are going to whine.
Well, the retail cards are all reference cards still.
Yeah,
that's what's important to realize. Let's talk about that after the next story because you kind of have the background in it on there. So, long story short, the R9 290 I think is a great graphics card. It is power hungry. It almost uses the same amount of power as the 290X. About 50 watts more than the GTX 780. It's louder. If you look at the two there,
what 1 dB is double the sound pressure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Alan,
No, not one.
It's 6
Logarithms.
It's a logarithm.
Because we're talking about
it's a weird
fathoms,
logarithmic
damn it.
scale.
and then 10 is supposed to be perceived double. So an increase is like
So I'm looking at 5.4 dB. That's a lot.
so it's kind of almost double.
Yeah, it's a lot. Look at the GTX 780 down there, and the 770.
It's okay. You won't be able to hear over his card. Just crank the band speed to 80.
You can actually run two GTX 780s in SLI and be 7 dB under the single R9 290.
Wow.
Right? So that's the thing that...
Just look for videos that can be
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to fan and cooler design, right? And
It also comes down to some physics with the chip.
75C chip when it's under a full load, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's probably running at a higher voltage.
How many generations has it been since that AMD stock coolers changed? Essentially the same range.
I think it's fair to say that AMD either doesn't spend as much engineering time on their reference cooler as AMD, and they kind of say, hey, this is how we let the partners differentiate, or they just don't care about like the kind of results that you get out of the reference. I mean,
I guess.
Hey, they're a company on a budget.
they are.
Only last quarter did they actually make a profit in like the past 2 years.
Correct. But even with that noise being an issue, I still think the 290 is a fantastic card at $399. If you can find one in stock for $399, I think it is the best card in and around that price range today. Right? So the 780 is still a really good card. It's $100 more, but right now you're getting the bundle with Splinter Cell, Batman, and Assassin's Creed for free. Those are 3 really good games, 3 really new games, likely ones you don't already have. You can get $100 off a Shield. You have Shadow Play support. You have other things like that that I think make it at least a very competitive option. But I still think that R9 290 is a great card as long as you understand the sound level differences and you're okay with that, right? So when I test, most of the time when we're testing, we're doing open test bed, and the GPU is like here, maybe like here,
And it's like a hairdryer for
And-
your hair.
when I was running these in Crossfire, oh Lord! I mean, it was
I took a
brings
shower.
tears to
Actually,
my
do I
eyes.
have
All
that?
soaking
Yeah.
wet.
I mean-
I thought I'd air dry, and I turned those on, and 30 seconds
50
later,
yeah.
That really is pretty loud. That's like vacuum cleaner on the other room.
Yeah, I mean, you'll
It's
be here
up there.
tomorrow if you want to. I can turn them on for you. And
That's enough to like wear you out if you're sitting next to it. Like, get tired of
Yeah, so if you're an iPhone user and you don't like your neighbors Maybe that's cool. Your roommates,
or you don't
whatever.
like your significant other.
Right. One thing that was brought up, Ken and I were discussing this evening, was we have that EVGA Hadron case, which is like a mini ITX, that tiny thing. I was like, I wonder if I could fit a 290X in there, because I want to see how it behaves or how it sounds.
Famous last words.
Yeah, I know. Which brings us to our next story that I published right before the 290 review went out. This is AMD Radeon R9 290X Hawaii, the configurable. So,
Oh my god, it's configurable.
so here's the premise for this. When we launched our 290X review, I posted this graph. This graph shows average clock speeds, right, it at, quote, up to 1,000 megahertz or a gigahertz. And the reason for this variance is that the updated power tune, where they are attempting to, but they sacrifices, pull down the clock speed and the voltage in order to make sure they don't go past this 95C level, which is already really high. Now, when I originally saw this, I thought, this is kind of weird. 95C is too hot. This fan is too loud. These clock speeds are too variable. That's a pretty big range. And I was kind of ticked off that they're not advertising a base clock or an expected clock, only the up to. Well, I could put up to 1400 megahertz on it and say, well, you just don't have the right thermal properties. You don't live in Antarctica and your system's not outside, right? But when I approached AMD with this issue, they said, well, we think of it more as configurable, right? Because it comes to the default state at 40% fan speed. But if you're okay with more noise,
If you want to crank it up to 11,
you can just pull that slider, right? And then you'll get more performance because of it. And as long as we can measure a default state performance, fine, I guess I can accept that as like a potential argument. But here's where things get interesting. When we did our 290X review, we found that we had to warm up the GPUs in a way we had never had to warm them up before. For example, take a look at
You
the...
can't for a good 3 minutes. Exactly.
Stuck his finger in the fan.
He's not done it since.
I don't have that finger anymore.
So here's Crisis 3 at 25 by 4 entirely for is usable.
80%?
It goes from like 29 to 24 frames per second. I believe that is, I don't know, 20%, as Josh said.
Math is hard.
It's very
so
difficult.
hard.
Now, that was at, let's see, 20%. Me trying to adjust things. Let me go down to 40%. 40, and here,
20%?
no.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't paying
weren't
attention.
paying
I was too
attention.
busy muting myself.
It's 10%. And so what I did was I ran this card at 40% default, and then I tried, let's see what happens if I put the fan speed down to 20%, 30%, or if I move it up to 50% or 60%. And so what we saw is that 20% and 30%, the performance delta between a cold GPU and a hot GPU is significant, like 20%. At default settings, it's 10%, which I think is also worth noting in a market where we tend to measure performance differences under 10%. And then I found that if we increase that to 50% or 60%, here's the 50% margin, it actually performs, right? And here's 60 from there too. So found was default setting that NVIDIA had set for quiet mode.
AMD.
I'm sorry.
AMD set.
Maybe
Good
NVIDIA
Lord.
set it. I don't know.
You were going to get sued, young man.
AMD set
again,
in quiet mode. You know, if somebody were reviewing this card and they did their normal, start it up, run a test, maybe run it again, quit, come back,
Did it
come months
outside
later,
in minus 15 degree.
Well, as I
Verify
found, you
temperature.
don't even have to wait 10 minutes between runs. If you are sitting at the game idling, if I was sitting in Crisis 3 and I was just staring at the same scene, I could watch clock speeds go up and fan speeds come down. And then when I start moving around again, clock speeds go back down, fan speeds come back up, right? And it was this weird, very on-demand thing that you could see going around. So that's something to keep in mind, is cold performance versus hot performance. And then if you look at this graph, you can see, like, for instance, this is all 5 of those runs, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Now, if you look at the screen, that's clear performance with the same card just by adjusting this slider. And then why is this happening? It turns out this is what the clock speeds look like in run 2. a little performance out of it. But we clearly hit the base clock here of 7. And you can see what's 99C ratings on GPU-Z, which is really bad. I don't think you want 99C.
Some panic.
But I mean, look at this. Look at power consumption difference. Right? So 40% 436. Look at the sound levels. We got a single card.
Says and looks over his shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
I know there are going to be people that complain about, NVIDIA does the same thing. Their clocks come down when you heat up the GPU. Here is an NVIDIA system. So there's a lot of information.
Hertz.
Yeah, it's weird.
Probably because there's just less thermal headroom on the AMD versus the NVIDIA.
Let's start the DDP.
Yeah. Did we lose Josh, or is he coming back?
Am I here?
Yeah, you're there.
There, you're back.
Oh, I didn't really leave. It's weird. I think I got me off.
It's me. I did it now.
Oh no, you didn't
well.
sell that button, did you, Ken?
You know,
I mean,
I've got a mute button, and Ryan's got a Josh button.
The exact same thing.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think about the kind of the state that AMD is in with the Hawaii parts? Right? Some people, if you're heavy NVIDIA leaning, you may say that, hey, you know what, this is like cheating. They're not advertising the right clock speeds. They're advertising a clock speed that you will almost never get in its default state, even on an open test bed. I'm testing on an open test bed, which should have better cooling around it than you would if you had a kind of an average system build. Or is it just, hey, AMD just took what NVIDIA did with GeForce GPU or with GPU Boost and took it a step further, and now it's just slightly more variable, but they're all trying to get to the same thing.
Am I still here? That's nice. I think it was foreseen consequences of AMD's design, because if you look at NVIDIA GPU 10 coming tomorrow, its chips 550 millimeters square, and it's 7 billion transistors now. AMD has a 6.2 billion transistor chip, and it's 420 millimeters square, 430 on a run. Those transistors are tight, probably tighter than any other GPU they've made before since. Yeah. And when you start having all the switching, it produces a lot of heat, but it's also going to produce a lot of heat in a smaller area compared to GTX. So the GPU 10 is able to make that heat transfer to the heatsink a little more efficiently because it's more surface area, it's fewer transistors as compared to the surface area. But AMD went that way, packing in small die area. And once it starts heating up and everything gets going, it goes up to 95C really quickly. And the cooler on that, as far as I know, is still B. You can complain as much as you want, but it's still pretty big as heavy card. So I think we're just simply dealing with a level of physics and thermals we have really not yet experienced, and AMD is dealing with this as best they can, the tools they have.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Because it's a neat chip. It's very powerful.
I think it's an interesting scientific experiment, and with all my free time I may do it, where let's take the 290X and turn the maximum temperature down to 80 C, and what kind of performance do we get out of it then? I'm imagining it's going to be very, very low.
What does the typical NVIDIA, for what you're hearing, what temperature does NVIDIA
80, 81.
So they're regulating, or the clock is always around 81
Correct.
versus 95.
Correct.
So I don't know how.
They don't sound like that much. In fact, it boosts GTX.
Well, in theory, it could be getting at 95C.
No, I don't mean to go that way. I'm from 80, and I'm not sure that this really translates down to you. Like, here's how it really fail, but there's a rule of thumb for internal that time you could tend to double a possible failure rate. So,
right.
50 increase. So, in theory, more than double, you sort of, means
they also increasing resistance, which also adds more heat.
I think that AMD, I'm sure if they could have run this part at 80 or 85, they would have done it and gotten the same performance, but it really came back. What I imagine happened, and Josh, correct me where you think this is incorrect, they get this part back and they go, well, crap. What if we do this? What if we take it up to 95? How confident are we in the reliability of this product at 95C? And now how much performance do we get? Now are we going to be able to beat the GTX 780 and the GTX Titan? Because obviously if they were going to run this at 80C, they weren't going to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's almost as if they just cranked it up until they can get to that point. Right? It's just like,
will not happen on the tech, right?
Yeah, and well, NVIDIA, they spec out their chips so that they will run consistently at 105C. And okay, on a GPU, theoretically, it'll still run fine within the specification. So AMD is probably doing something like, hey, let's spec these out for 95C. And it can run in between this range. But boy, who needs serious power and thermal throttling to be able to get this to even remotely consistent?
It's just going to make the this like for this or stuff because you have when you have a which to run and you crank up higher power going to the water blowing out in order to meet on the flip side, if you did one of those, you probably won't actually keep your cooler. Compared to NVIDIA, believe it or not, willing to what we'll do.
Yep. I agree. I think this Hawaii GPU is going to be interesting to see. It's interesting to see in the next 2 months how retail board partners versus end users kind of play around with cooling solutions, play around with adjusting power envelopes and clock speeds and that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of potential for it. There's just, I mean, as Josh was saying, you can't get past like the physics of the problem, right?
Yeah.
It's at some point you have to, you're sacrificing sound and heat for performance. And
But when you go for those not the reference design, but the third party guys, and they start those humongous all that stuff and 3 fans kind of coolers on there, there's probably much more potential for this hard person out of those.
Yeah, no, and it all, because I'd be curious to see. I don't know if you can set the maximum temperature of like a Kepler to 95C and see what kind of clock rates it gets to, because I think they kind of limit what you can do voltage wise at all. It might be interesting to see like what kind of options they can give us to test around and see. But they do have a card coming out tomorrow that may answer some or none of these questions.
Is Tap flying out again?
He is not. He's flown out somewhere else. I don't want to talk about him right now.
He's somewhere tropical.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm angry.
Because he's not with you.
I'm so angry. We're going to move out of hardware. Josh posted a story on about alcohol.
Alcohol.
Tell me about it. Rather quickly.
Okay, because of lose 2.
Exactly. I think Jeremy word is first of the drinking class.
Yes.
Mr. Wild, probably best. But a couple weeks ago, these guys, he sent me a bourbon. Now, I've sampled some. I've shared quite a bit with friends. So I'm not, it did take me 2 days to get through this. No, it's been a month that I've had this in my possession. We checked it out. But anyway, this little town called Kirby, Wyoming. I have ties from around there. I grew up in Thermopolis, about 15 miles south of Kirby. I used to go and eat every Friday night at this place in Kirby, Wyoming. They had really good hamburgers, mushroom sauteed butter.
Pickled herring.
What are we talking about?
Pickled herring. But anyway, in this town, they decided to create a distillery, and they're going to produce bourbon. Wyoming whiskey. It's a true corn mash bourbon. You need to read the article because it goes through the history of the distillery. It talks about locally grown ingredients. They actually shoot water for quite a while from the strain. Comes from what's called the
Kentucky.
Oh, no. Basically, a aquifer that goes through limestone, removes all the iron, purifies it. That is information in Wyoming and the bighorns. But so crystal, clean, soft. They don't even do a kind of treatment to send it to the nearest municipalities, maybe Worland and Kirby, Wyoming. So you get some fantastic water, barley, alcohol. Scroll down a little bit more, you'll understand that James Watt of and that's just review. I interviewed the second. Get it?
I like that.
He's lawyer. It was kind of odd to see that he's working with his hands. But yeah, they got a master distiller. Used to be master distiller, Maker's Mark. He retired. They approached and said, "Hey, we'd like to make a frog." They built this distillery, have 3 massive warehouses. They're making bourbon like the wind. Never wait for it. Hey, and
October 1st. I'm reading your date bottled October 1st.
It is, and so this is it was bottled just last month. It's the 15th batch. It was aged for potentially 4 years, so went through 4 winters and 5 summers. And it was pretty smooth. It's a lot of interesting flavor. I usually make Scotch guy. I've been moving up to this. It's quite good. You'll need to do the entire thing. But it's kind of fascinating to read how this is produced. What goes into it? What kind of effects the environment has on the quality of the products, and what these guys are kind of doing with it. I mean, they invest a lot of money in it. They're finally starting to get some out, and they've got a good. So not everybody can live on. They're going to use them, and certainly you can drink them. So
well, you can them. You can drink.
You can. Yeah, it's true. Right. But you know what? You're going to have to visit a doctor. And,
I noticed under the caption it says, "I happily shared this bottle with friends over the past. I did not receive my share."
Your hosting fee?
Yeah, I'll see what we can do about that.
What's it like on this article?
Yeah.
Poured over 2 cubes is your favorite way of a giant.
In this form of the Death Star.
The Death Star cube.
I have a Death Star cube. That is considered one giant cube. Yeah. One badass cube, as Ken says. That's correct. So that's interesting. I'll have to. Is it going to be over here? Can I buy it out here?
Kentucky is one of the areas they're looking to start shipping to.
Because
people like bourbon.
Impress people in Kentucky.
Brewing about 300,000 and change bottles a year.
That's the maximum, yeah.
Interesting. So if you're interested in Wyoming whiskey and bourbon, check out Josh's article on PC Perspective. Let's talk about some news things. I'm going to cut a couple of these things out because it's late and whatever.
That's why there's question marks beside them.
So let's talk about this, the continuing Tech Report SSD torture test. Jeremy, you posted this. What is the most recent update that they had?
What's perhaps more up Allen's value, but they're starting to see a degradation. They're getting the equivalent, I think it's 5 complete writes a day, which is just ridiculous. 5 gigabytes a day. So, I mean, if you honestly write 5 gig of data a day every single day, and kind of us links with my links to Scott. I got this.
Ended up, this is a 200 terabyte.
Yeah, no, it's 200 terabytes.
So they're not gigs, like a few gigs per day. They're,
Well, they've been for a while.
yeah, like a month. I think they hit 100 terabytes.
20 gigs a day for 3 years. At 8 terabytes, they're currently up to 100 gigs per day for 5 years.
You know, I did a test for 9 months. No, probably like 14 months. Those 4 SSDs in that stat I can look up and see how much they've been written to them, or is what I
have to pull it out of the smart data, which means you'd have to pull them out of your array.
Don't let him get yours right.
Maybe I'll let you do that this weekend, Alan.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
You don't touch it. You're not allowed to touch the.
I'm very curious because it's a terabyte array, 960 gigs. Yeah, that I bet I fill up 3 times a day sometimes. Right,
Yeah.
so that means I'm writing 200 plus gigs a day
per drive.
to each drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's kind of like their in the middle conclusionary stuff here? Oops, it breaks.
Where'd it go?
It's right. They're all still, a couple of them are actually showing essentially the same performance that they were before. What they're starting to see is that clusters are being marked as unusable. Now, for a lot of them, that actually means that, it's just using up extra provision. But essentially what we're seeing is Corsair, their Neutron GTX, doesn't care. It's at 200 terabytes, it's still reporting 100% health. The HyperX, they're running only Prestige.
It's like, it depends on the report, right? All how they are.
And I mean, the Samsung actually, they're looking at almost half of clusters that suffer at least some damage, but the drive is.
Yeah.
Performance-wise, honestly, we're talking a couple of percent when they sent for seeing when you first started supporting numbers.
Well, actually, okay, so that measure wasn't based on, or it wasn't affecting, like, how long it takes to write to a given block flash. That's done with firmware using how it was measured. The table from the drive that directs the sort of flash. So it was sort of like a lookup table delay. That was variable. Right? So these drives, he's running very long duration. So the delay you've gotten from that, that would have shuffled like within the first day. And then just for months.
Saying things like on car, you're simulating wear.
Yeah, you're trying to wear out flash. That's what he's going for. So to get to see how much water does you're looking for. This was rated so many for many years. Well, we did it in less than many years. Right?
And not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, so long they're all doing pretty good. I think if he gets any failures, even then almost gets that failure, they can very well just control or something like that. Well, actually hits, after Raspberry and poof. That's really up to how well the vector report that's in our data. Really.
I still love the fact that the 840, the Samsung 4256 gig, seems to be slowly getting faster. It's just really, really weird.
I think that's. I don't know.
Seems like magic to me.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Even if the firmware was in some way adapting the workload or whatever, it should have way right off the bat, basically. First couple of laps around the flash, should just figured it out. Okay, it wasn't, just hung out there. Probably just some little quirk in the firmware that just, makes it not catch up for a long time. Something that probably couldn't be caught, because how would you possibly catch this unless you did this kind of a test? Right.
Well, let's move on. Let's talk about Valve's Steam Machine and Steam Controller. Apparently, Valve, and here you can see in all the shelf. This one is showing a DVI port. It's kind of in that small of a box, which is pretty impressive. And I use the controller, so I don't really have any first-hand stuff on this. I'm hoping at CES I'll be able to coerce Valve into letting us all kind of come in and play around with it and try out the controller, because that's the thing that I think most people are the most interested in. If you are going to be with the lucky 300 beta testers for it, this is the box you'll get, which is a pretty cool looking.
It didn't end well for the 300.
Yeah, well, this one's a better 300.
Oh, consoles that also have
that's not so good. I'm sorry, Gabe. I can't do that.
Yeah.
No.
You should.
Sorry.
There'll be people modding that a little. They'll put a little, weird lens on that wing, and a little red. It'll just be hell. Hey, it wouldn't take much. You already got the backlight,
Sure.
But it's kind of funny. It's like the bastard child of an Xbox and a little 2U rack mount server.
And you take the thing, you put it aside, and then that puts the someone just starts button, right? How on it?
With the machines, but that's just because it's
You
limited.
tear it apart and just use the Titan for yourself.
No, I have Titans. That's not the issue. It's the
I don't have Titans.
the issue is just like now that I know only 300 people are going to get it, and I want to be one of those 300 people for no particular reason. I could build a better gaming machine than this, but I won't have SteamOS.
If only we'd had a discussion about that earlier.
It looked impressively crammed in there, though.
It does. Yeah, and think about putting an R9 290X in that chassis.
You can actually hover.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Make a hover.
What would happen to it if you put it into that small of a chassis?
Well, it would melt.
No, it would probably just run slower.
It'll probably just shut down.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. NVIDIA Grid GPUs available. Nope. NVIDIA GPU. No. NVIDIA Grid GPUs available for Amazon EC2. NVIDIA's attempt to put GPUs in the cloud, kind of, initially marketed as streaming games to wherever you're at on your tapping. But in the meantime, Amazon, who I think is without a doubt the biggest provider of online computing resources in the world, started offering EC2 instances with NVIDIA Grid GPUs in them. What GPU? You can see gigahertz. It's kind of gigahertz at 8. It looks like, outside my scope. But if you're doing any kind of graphics programming where you want to have access to compute resources, but you don't want to buy a Quadro card or a Tesla card, now you have access to these resources in the cloud. Obviously, you have to manage it all a little bit differently than you would otherwise. But it's cool now to know that if you have a GPU-based application, you don't have to run it locally. You can run it in the cloud like so many other people are doing. Like all of our streaming servers that we created are in the cloud. A lot of our CDNs and stuff like that are all based off Amazon EC2. So the fact that you can now access CPU-based compute units as well as GPU-based compute units is pretty cool. And I'd be curious to see how big of a financial win this is for NVIDIA, how many of these Quadro or Tesla cards or whatever they're actually selling to Amazon for this purpose, or GeForce cards. I don't know what their special deal they might come up with. Would be pretty interesting.
And if it's an Android-based app, you might be able to run it off your Shield.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is...
I'm still trying to look for an excuse to bring a Shield into work and say it's my main work computer.
Well, that'd be a bad idea, because you would not get anything done.
The point?
Oh, gotcha. I'd be curious. I think he said, let's see, Scott wrote this article. He said Windows Server 2008 on this EC2 instance. Locally and...
2008, yeah.
Yeah, no reason not to.
But but there's got to be some kind of issue with the way, like, can you just connect to it through virtual or through like RDP and not really be able to play a game? But
what do you mean? 2008 will drive a display. What are you talking?
Yeah,
but it's the virtualized
NT one that we were running Doom off of. Come on, we all did that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're right. But like recent VMware supports DirectX calls up like that. I think something like that.
Yeah, I think it's more of you can't start an EC2 instance and say, hey, I'm going to have my own streaming game server. I don't think it's
it
quite
wouldn't work that well.
It's more for GPU compute stuff for now. But the fact that they're getting this out there and people are going to be able to develop interesting things, I think will be compelling to see. All right, let's get into hardware software picks of the week. We kind of got dominated by graphics talk already. So I just got this in this week. Today? I got it in today. So this is a new keyboard from Topre. How did we Topre?
Topre.
Topre Corporation. This is Topre. Topper. It's a Type Heaven.
Japanese, right?
It's a Type Heaven keyboard. It is a Japanese keyboard. It is not a Cherry keyboard.
Topure. Topure.
Topre.
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know. So this keyboard it's unique as far as I've used keyboards. It's $150 on Amazon. It's actually being distributed by Seasonic in the U.S., which is interesting. So they're just kind of being the distributor for U.S. that is. But I have been using it for the last 3 hours, writing a review. It's pretty good. It's got a fairly good feel to it, and it doesn't have the sharp sounds of the... Yeah, not $50 for keyboards. It's pretty steep, but here.
Oh, come on, DOS keyboard. Even more than that.
I hope there's my review. It's pretty good. It's pretty nice. I'll spend some more time with it, obviously. Although I already started complaining to King because it doesn't have a calculator button on it, and it is softer
than a Cherry.
So says the marketing material. Yes, softer than a Cherry. It is definitely that. It has a smooth and clean aesthetic. It is that too. So that's that. It's actually listed at Amazon under Seasonic Capacitive Keyboard. Buy it with our affiliate code, maybe. Yeah. Got Topre for everyone. Amazing keyboard. Close to the Kinesis. Yeah. Man, you can't write like that. All right.
Yes, because when I think of Paradise, I think of typing.
Well, I mean, Seasonic is pretty. They're pretty high in power. Quality stuff. So
I don't see their name anywhere on this, to be perfectly honest.
I don't know.
They're distributing
you wrote it in the show notes. So
I know. but like on the box, there's no Seasonic. They did not print a new box yet. If they're going to, they haven't printed it yet.
There's no sticker that says "Brought to you by Seasonic."
No, you're right. It does too.
Well, I can't honestly say that I would ever utilize this hack, but it is just such an utterly brilliant hack. It is essentially the same as buying one of the lower-end Fluke devices and suddenly getting the high-end one. What it is a man that figured out that there is a way to very, very easily change a FLIR E4 thermal camera that's about $1,000 into the $6,000 E8 model. It's literally just a slight upgrade to the firmware. You change the serial number and a couple of zip files, and you're going from an 80 by 40 resolution image to 320 by 240, and these are sort of one of the higher end thermal cameras on the market. So seriously, if this is your sort of thing, don't bother buying the E8. Pick up the E4, and thanks to a little bit of cheapness on the engineering, they're using these exact same internals as the high-end one. Change the serial number, add a couple of extra files, and away you go.
All right, very cool. That might actually be handy in the not-too-distant future. Josh, what do you got?
I've got a 290 that Jeremy could thermal image with his hacked imager. No? Okay.
That's not what you put in the show notes.
It was not. No, I've been using this GTX 780 DC2 from Asus. It's been a fantastic card. It's been quiet. It's been cool. It runs my 3 screens very nicely. And with the price cut to, $511 after everything, it's a nice bargain. Plus, you get $100 off Shield and 3 free games.
3 free games.
Free.
Cool. All right. And last but not least, maybe least, I don't know.
The heck did you pick, Alan?
Yeah, so, okay, this is weird to describe. So, you guys live in cold weather, so this applies to you more, actually, believe it or not.
Yes.
So, Ryan, it's like cold and stuff, and you want to wash your vet.
No.
It's not cold there. I mean, it's not. It's still.
Say
very
it's
temperate.
the middle of winter, and he wants to wash his vet.
Okay, let's
right?
say I'm for it. Let's go.
Okay. Or say it's the middle of summer for Josh.
All right.
He wants to wash his
I've
car,
only got
and it's
6
like
inches on the ground
yes, and there's 6 inches on the ground, right?
because I'm
So,
excited.
what if I told you you could take a capful of some material and stick it in a gallon of water, and then you take like your wash rag, you dip it in that. It doesn't really get sudsy. It's just sort of still watery. You just dip it in that, and this stuff just like magically pulls the dirt off of your car somehow. You just like wipe the car down with it.
Are you a
And it
wizard?
just- and it just does it. And then you take a dry rag or just a damp one, like a chamois kind of thing, and you just wipe that over after the thing's, you made
So
your
it's
first pass, and that's
ShamWow
it.
compatible?
And your car's washed.
I'm
it what
looking at this.
compatible?
It's 82 5-star reviews. It's pretty good.
How does it water cool?
It's some kind of weird,
No, but how does it function as a water cooling fluid?
I have no idea.
You only need a capful to get that 290.
Yeah, you put a capful
Down to
into a
65C.
gallon of water
Hey.
for this stuff.
I don't understand how this would work.
And neither do I, and it's like I just don't care.
It
because
breaks the ionic bonds of the dirt to your paint.
It's like an emulsifying kind of thing, and sort of like just grabs the stuff. And if you use 2 buckets, if you have like a bucket of just straight rinse
So it's
water,
extremely lipophilic.
yeah.
Because
if you use a
dirt is
bucket of
made of
straight rinse
fat?
water and the bucket with this stuff in
Well,
it,
it's usually
and
got a
you-
fatty end on it.
and if you keep going from like the gallon that you have prepared with this stuff in it, and then you keep rinsing off in the other bucket and then going back into the other one, so you're not trashing the gallon of water that you put the capful into, you can pretty much use that like over and over. Like you could put a lid on the bucket
Could buy
And then
100
just-
of these.
and then just like come back. Yeah, it's probably, and it's a 32 ounce. Like you only have to put like, I think, an ounce to a gallon, and you can save the gallon. So like the thing will last you forever. And they make other products too, but that's the first one that I've dabbled with. They make all sorts of like detailing oriented kind of stuff for cars, but they're like these really crazy polymer technology guys or whatnot.
Nifty.
And the stuff works. I mean,
Could
I mean, if your car's
fill it?
really just nasty and salty and grimy, then you're probably going to want to just rinse it off or something. But if it's,
What if you filled an entire swimming pool full of it?
To
Dude,
clean,
like
you're just gonna
clean
and then
when you got out.
listen, Ryan, you can't drive your vet into your freaking swimming pool to wash it. That's kind of
You don't tell me what to do. I'm sorry.
well. Okay, you can,
If I roll the windows up, I could.
but I'm not rebuilding your engine.
Oh, right.
After you do that.
Fine.
How about your front
Oh, Alan, you
suspension?
love rebuilding engines. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
And before we move on, I got to mention the Humble Bat Bundle.
Okay, go for it.
This week's Humble Bundle is just about all the Batman games.
Batman.
If you haven't picked them up, and I haven't, and well, honestly, I probably won't, but if it's your thing, do it.
Honesty, that's what we're all about here.
I'm a Marvel guy.
All right, anybody else got anything? I'm going to end this damn show.
I got things, but not anything.
Okay, great. Awesome. So that has been the 276th episode of the PC Perspective Podcast. If you want to share this with your friends, it's pcper.com/podcast. If you want to subscribe so you know when we go live and you can see all the fun stuff that happens, it's pcper.com/subscribe. All we need is your name and email address. I won't even let Josh send you the nudes that he wants to.
They're nice nudes. They're
Well,
elegant, classy.
well, it's like looking at a Muppet.
Why did someone just comment on my making fun of a Monster Cable post a year ago?
Look, it's the internet. What can I say? Look,
Yeah,
PCPer.com. Go there for all the hardware, good stuff, graphics cards. If you like graphics cards, we got a lot of that stuff coming up, and maybe some tablet stuff coming up next week too. And next week I'll be at the AMD.
APU 13.
I don't like that name. It's a developer summit. Like APU 13 sounds like they're going to launch a new APU or something, and they're not. They're just going to talk about
HSA
like how
and
to make
APU.
HSA work and people to use it. So it
Do
should
you
be
think
interesting.
we're ever going to make it to 500? I mean, really? Seriously?
500 episodes?
Yeah, much less 1,000.
Oh, we'll definitely hit
I
1,000.
just don't want to think.
No, we'll
Do
definitely
you
hit
know how
1,000.
old I'm going to be at that point?
We actually, we didn't make it through this one, so we may put out a 10-minute episode of the PC Perspective Podcast.
true.
It starts with a pick by Jeremy. We'll just have to see. Bye, guys. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Thanks for watching.